bunch of supporting nods. Like everybody, yeah.
They're like, they're all like, we're so glad this isn't us three.
Awesome. This is gonna happen.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will call our February 2026 meeting to order. Do we have any visitors?
Just the usual crew.
Not, yeah, great. Okay, well, we will start with our land acknowledgements. So all Spokane Public Library buildings sit on the traditional homelands of the 4 bands of the Spokane Tribe of Indians: Upper Band, Middle Band, Lower Band, Chewelah Band. Since time immemorial, the Spokane Tribe of Indians has lived and cared for these grounds, identifying themselves as flesh of the earth. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. We show gratitude to the land, river, and peoples who have been fishing, hunting, harvesting, and gathering here for generations. May we learn from one another's stories so that we may nurture the relationship of the people of the Spokane tribe and to all of those who share this land. All right, do we have any adoptions or changes to the proposed agenda?
None from staff.
None from staff? All right,
We are moving, last time we talked about moving the doots to next meeting, but are we gonna put that back in April?
April.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for knowing what due
And then this is a super reminder, so it's the 2026 annual report, it's the 2025 annual report.
Okay.
I'll make that change.
oh, okay, great.
You're looking ahead.
All right,
Sorry.
can I
No, for 2026.
get a motion to
I
approve the agenda with that one change?
move that we.
And the detenants?
Just a side question. I move that we adopt this agenda with a change of 2025. But otherwise, everything stay as stands.
All right, we have a
Second.
motion, or a second. All right, all those in favor? And Kip is saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and then we'll do the approval of the January meeting minutes.
I move to approve the January 2026 meeting minutes.
All right, I have a motion and a second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of approval of the January 2026 meeting minutes? and
Aye.
Kip is saying aye? Aye. All right, and then approval of our December 2025, and then period 13, 2025. Bills and contributions, okay, I was like, it feels like there's something missing there. Yeah, so, yeah, December 2025, and then period 13, bills and contributions.
I move to approve the December 2025 and period 13 bills and contributions in the amount of $1,556,885.74.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
R says aye.
Is she typing them in?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Mari.
Mhm.
And then moving on to January 2026 bills and contributions. Can I get a motion for approval?
I move to approve the January 2026 bills and contributions in the amount of $966,635.72.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All right, cruising through. Nicole, with our financial report.
Thank you. Gonna do kind of a quick doc walk for you, because this is a big package this month. So kind of what I'm gonna first go through is the library operations for 2025 year end. I will cover things, all the fixed and expenditures, because those, they didn't approve bills and contributions, that's what I'm covered. And then I will do a bond fund update, which is sort of a quick summary of the full year. And then I will do the January 26 financial update for operations. Behind all of those updates, kind of a summary, high level graphs, all that are the supplemental financial statements. So for the full year, you'll have the December closeout balance sheet, And then you'll have the income statement essentially, a combined statement of expenditures. You'll have just the revenue financial statements. And then following that is all of our expenditures broken down by department. And the details of those. So we've got administration, community technology, communications. Those are all the admin funds. And then public services, support services, programming, training, library facilities, and then capital. So after that, we will have essentially all of the expenditures from 2019 for the bond up all the way through 2025 year end. So we'll wrap up all of the capital projects through the year. And then after that is, again, the same financial statements for operations, where it's balance sheets, income statement, revenue, and then all the expenditures by department. That one's for January. So those are just supplemental, brief, you can do it at the meeting if you have questions on stuff, but we will go through the financial statement portions of it. It's gonna kind of highlight the summary. So I know it's a lot, but it's only kind of 1 month per year that we use.
Yeah.
So diving, so for library operations, 2025 year end, for cash and investments trend, we did close the year with the ability to pay 69 days of operating costs. So just a reminder for new people here. So what our operating costs are essentially that year's annual expenditure budget divided by 365 days. So kind of where the tracking of that really came from is back in 2012, we essentially didn't have enough cash to make payroll. So with the board and library administration, the goal was to obtain a minimum of 90 days in our operating costs. So that's something we very closely tracked ever since then. So it's a big goal of ours. Revenue is not something we look at because we're a public service fund, particularly a special revenue fund. So revenue is not part of our gig, it's mostly just tax. Usually about 2 to 3% of our funding actually just comes from library fees or events, things of that nature. The main portion of it is our general fund allocation, which comes from property and sales tax from the city. We don't have a specified amount what that is year over year. And then our levy lid left is property tax. So that's the other portion of what float all these years. The last levy lid left was approved by the voters February 24th. That was a 3-year levy. It's at 7 cents per $1,000 of assessed values for homes. Typically before that we did 7-year levies. But with the capital bond projects that we had that started in 2019, came a lot more operations. We've got more programming, we've got more hours, we've got event space, we've got, as you have extended quite dramatically. So we thought it was more fair to the public to kind of go with the 3-year mark. So we can kind of get our feet from under us, understand where we're at financially. Also during the time that we were undergoing all of those bond projects. So when COVID happened, so we were fortunate enough that those coincided and we did actually build a pretty healthy reserve fund balance. And it's not our job to sit on cash. So the other plan with that levy the lift renewal for the 3 years was to also spend down the balance, which we have been find out. So just a little background on what the operating days look like. And just for reference for this graph, so in 2023, the average or the 1 day of operating costs was $34,212. For 2024, it was $38,345. And for 2025, 1 day of operating costs was $39,766. So any questions kind of high level on that side of things? They come to you later, no worries. So as far as the expenditure trend for periods 12 and 13, which ties back to the bills and contributions that were approved, the first set of them. So the operating costs for December and period 13 were $1,531,137. $1,043,849 of that amount is for staff, personnel, wages, and benefits. That does include a rule from January 2026. So not the benefit side, but just the salaries and wages get to accrue back, because there's a portion of the pay period that is paid out in January, but is actually for December dates. Let's see, books and materials for capital, total $111,604. We had an annual subscription renewal for an integrated library system called Folio. That amount was $93,883. Utilities were paid for an amount totaling $9,124 for all of our branches, including storage unit. Our third-party security charges were $31,761. That covers security at the Hive, Shale Park, Liberty Park, and a little bit of coverage at Central to help with our in-house security team that are there. The city did post some interfund charges and the amount totaling $31,627. We did have canine unit pest and insect detective costs that accumulated throughout the whole year, paid out in one lump sum for the amount of $24,293. And we had an annual subscription renewal in the amount of just about $20,000 for the online reservation software integration. So basically looking into this.
Is the canine unit a new charge? I don't remember that from years prior.
We have had that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But typically it's invoiced in small amounts each month.
Mm.
What had happened is the person that we hired was kind of old school. So he was sending his invoices with little like paper ones.
Mhm.
Chooses a picture of it with his phone, and he was sending it to a facilities person once hired.
Oh.
So they were accumulating in her inbox, and then finally, like end of November, we're like, he mentioned something about not getting paid, but
Mhm.
this side thing actually cashed.
Okay, so there weren't like late fees or anything.
Yeah.
That's why it's one large amount. Okay.
Exactly. So typically, it's not something worth talking about.
Yeah.
But
When is that service needed
bed bugs.
for bed bugs?
Yeah. And we do have some mice.
What?
Mice happens sometimes.
Mhm.
But yeah, bed bugs is our name.
Because it's like canine, I was thinking someone with a dog.
He does.
He does have a dog.
They sniff them out.
They sniff out.
I just love it. I don't have talent.
Mine doesn't.
Do you tell them? Do you tell your dog regularly?
Wish you would.
For the, going back to the days cash on hand, so from like year over year, looking at the month over month trend, it's pretty steady, which tells me we're doing a good job internally of controlling
Yeah.
finances. Can you kind of speak to the variance between 2023 to 2025? And what I would say is a pretty significant reduction each year in the overall average.
It is. So 2023, that's kind of when we really had the peak of our fund balance level. And with years after that, we've been budgeting at a deficit. So we've just been spending down.
Yeah.
So we were close to about 6 million in fund balance in investments, and now we're just below 4 million.
Okay.
So it's really those massive month over month shortfalls that are continuously accumulating.
Yeah.
And you think too, it's pretty consistent as the majority of costs are staffing.
Right.
And it's always consistent.
Yep.
Payroll. The other major cost is capital materials that's spread pretty evenly throughout the year.
And the expectation is that this will get spent down this year in order to maintain the budget as it is and in anticipation of whatever we end up with next year.
Next year, so
Yeah.
and planning this year for that.
So with like continuing this trend of like, this is me doing like really rough math, we could potentially get down to like an average in 2026 of like closer to 25 days cash on hand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
or less than that.
Especially because our operating costs per day, the number is gone, is expected to be increased for this next year. It's like in the 40s or whatever you put in there, 40,000.
To our expenditure budget prior to the bond projects and our enhanced operating services we have. we were right around 9.8 to 10.1 million of annual operating expenses. For 2026, we're over 15.
And just as a reference point for 2023, that's the first year that all the branches
We're open.
Budgets.
Okay, any other questions for that page? Cool. So here you have the disclosure that we have for the 2025 encumbrance carryover. For operations fund, we actually didn't have any outstanding encumbrances, so there were no contracts or purchase orders that were established in 2025 that need to be moved for the 2026 budget, so we have no additional budget threshold to report on that one. So below that, here's a snapshot of essentially our 2025 year-end results from an income statement perspective. Overall, basically our resources over our expenditures, we spent down our fund balance by $1,681,600. Pretty close to on budget. There's a few variances we'll get into monthly more details to go through this process. You may notice on the wages and benefits, it's a little odd where wages was over and benefits was under. There's some variance in there with part of the cost savings initiative that we were given in 2025. It did come with a almost a $500,000 budget reduction general fund reduction to allocated tax dollars from that. Was holding 2 positions vacant. So that's why you see that the benefits also under budget. Overall being over budget side, we had a lot of retiree payouts. So we have pretty good payouts to still working that vacation accrued and sick. You get a pretty decent lump sum of any due. So there's some variation in that. And some of our temp seasonal spend. So that's why the difference. Moving on for snapshot of financial resources. So this graph is just going to show you our non-tax related revenue streams essentially. So $400,666 was non-tax related dollars. Some of that was from the friends of the libraries. They provide a lot of support for us. We provide programs, snacks, because we cannot use public dollars to purchase food for consumable or for the public. They do those surplus book sales. They provide story time supplies. They're a big help when it comes to summer reading programs. So a lot of those books and those giveaway items as well. Friends supports all these things that they really can't spend more on. Foundation, they're always a huge help with gathering money, by Giving Tuesday and all kinds of great stuff. But they essentially provide us lump sum last year, which is just general support for different things as needed. Typically, that gets tracked over multiple years, depending on what it's like. So other program support, that's going to be some of our grant dollars. We've got folio development and an EBSCO grant with the Washington State Library that covered about $48,000 for one of our seasonal developers that we have in community technology. It also includes some E-rate. So what E-rate is a federal program through the USDC that allows libraries and schools. It provides a discount on internet services. So we don't pay a lot for internet because we're providing sort of educational services for the public. Then fees here for the obvious event space, $18,641 on all of our private events that were booked throughout the year. Central parking lot, we don't get a lot of money through that, but every little bit counts. We do contract with Diamond for the central lot. So that's the company who basically goes in and tickets, he checks all that for us. A long time ago, we had somebody that operated with a booth right there, but it's not very cost effective.
Do they get a percentage of like the ticket costs? Do they get the full ticket cost?
So for the contract, they get $250 flat fee per month, and then 35% of all sales after the $250.
Would it be cheaper to contract with the city? And I only ask because I thought that was a city lot. I didn't know that the library owned it. And then I didn't know that it was Diamond. So I was just curious. Because I know they get a percentage, so I was just curious, it would be cheaper to contract with the city or I don't know how they.
The interfund services, I don't know that it would.
Okay. Fair enough.
So- And then they would collect that revenue as well. So yeah, I think we'd be worse off, but it's worth asking the question. Like streamline that to us. But we own that property. Want to keep it close. It's a little bit. Good question, thank you. So, and then Washington Work Study, that's kind of the internship program, so we get some money back from the state for paying for students to get some writing experience with us. And then interest income, 211,192, that's going to be diminished, as we continue to spend our fund balance. Less and less.
Will the fund remain invested or is the plan to like liquidate some of it or?
So we invest all of our funds in the Spokane investment pool, so they manage that portfolio.
Yeah.
We are just, what we do, so twice a year we get flip dollars, but whenever that comes in, I'll do a pretty large investment towards that, and then as we pay bills and have warrants that have to be paid, I'm monitoring what our available cash is, so I'm slowly withdrawing from that investment.
Okay.
So it's kind of a fluctuating.
Thank you.
Yeah. So below that is just a snapshot of our total expenditure budget versus what our actuals were from a percentage standpoint. So essentially, for our total budget of expenditures, we spent 98% of it. You'll see a dip in the supplies where we just spent 62%. Pretty immaterial overall compared to all of our other costs, but I do want to say kudos to staff. They've been a little bit more mindful on office supplies and use and stuff like that. So with the budget cuts, I can tell there's been a little bit of a shift. Right, moving on. So here's a snapshot of personnel. This is a little different than in prior years. I never included a chart to show FTE and total number of staff. So I thought that would go really nice side by side with the dollar amount. So this is essentially what the staff actual costs were compared to budget from a department level. So again, we've got public services, programming, facilities, support services, administration, technology, and communications. So below that, you'll see the FTE that we have adopted at 103.5. Back before bond projects took place, we were at about 89 FTE. So we've got an in-house security and things along those lines. Total number of staff we have is 139 people, which includes pages, substitutes, and seasonal. So in the blue on the staff count is going to be your total staff, which add up to 139. And then the orange and the gray are the portion of what's FTE for us versus what is part-time. Total staff, 66% of our head count for staff are in public services and programming. And then 21% of our staff make up facilities and support services, just 13% being in administration. So all of the community technology, business. And all.
Would it be possible for us to see these numbers with the same as like the days cash on hand with like the year over year comparison? Do you have that historical?
I definitely have that
Data.
I can send it to you in email form.
Yeah, or even just like at the next meeting. I don't think it's not like super pressing. It would just be interesting to see the comparison of the growth and showing that we,
Yeah. And it does, it will show it too when we do the budget process. It's a 7-year kind of projection we have, and it shows some historical as well. Yeah, great. Any other questions on that? Okay. Moving on to supplies, again, it's pretty immaterial compared to our overall budget capacity. But for 2025, we spent 325,464. where our budget was 573,451. So computers pretty low. Part of our budget initiative was to spend less on computers, so we didn't even do budget reduction there. But doing technology did a great job this year, and we've been able to far outreach those cost savings. It's great. Overall, pretty under on every single category except for the recreation and promotional supplies. A lot of that just has to do with the inflation and then also the demand because we have such a large volume of programs that we have. Also close to what, 6,000? So it's great. So for services, this is exclusive of utilities. I had utilities pulled out separately. Easy one, but overall, here's kind of our services by category. You'll see alarm and security services did go quite a bit over budget by about 56,000. So that's for our third party security guard costs. Just that need is ever there. There's also a lot of after hours events where we hired that third party to kind of do some of that coverage. So that's where that comes in. Everything else is pretty self-explanatory in here. Insurance premiums, advertising, designer services a little over, but again, we've got a lot of events going on. IT and data phone services is a little higher. So some of our like our integrated library software service came in a little bit more than normal. We also had a change. Washington State Legislature passed a sales tax on a lot of IT data services that took effect October 1st. So that brought some of our expenses a lot higher than they used to be. So there's that. And everything else on here is pretty, I guess, I can highlight some of our contract services because that's a pretty general category. But in that bucket, you're going to see a lot of things like the HVAC maintenance, the alarm, the both fire and security alarm. That's contracted through a third party service. We've got self-check kiosk and our printing stations, so that software is part of that expense. And then also like our elevator maintenance. We have the elevators essential, so those have to be maintained for it. And for professional services, so that's a lot of our, again, pest control, courier, E-rate compliance. So there's a lot of federal paperwork involved when it comes to qualifying for that discount on internet services. That's awesome too, but it's well worth it. It's very time. It's a huge time span for second package. For that.
For the contracted security services for the after-hour events, are those library run programming or are those like external groups?
Library.
They're library run, okay.
Yeah.
So is there a requirement if I'm renting out space at the library for a birthday party or whatever event and it requires security, are they required to pay that?
Typically those do pay, it depends on what it,
Okay,
who's booking it. But Kira Barker, she manages those private event after hours.
Yeah.
And those our building's still locked down. And so, not everybody is just able to book things after hours and they're required to lock up after themselves or like leave the building and not leave like a door open.
okay, so the library isn't incurring a charge for security for a non-library related
Correct.
programming event after hours, okay.
And in the event that something like that's required, there is a security fee, so we would charge.
Cool. And then my other question, and this is probably for you, Andrew, for the IT tax, because I know that this has hit a lot of places in not a great way.
Yep.
Has that been a broader communication of the impact of public services?
Yeah, so the library directors across the state were chiming in.
Yeah.
They're gathering data on what that impact
Cool.
is. I don't know if it's gonna be a fix in this legislative
Right.
session, because anything that was possibly wrongly taxed, like the performers tax as well, for even educational honorariums, I don't see, that tax being clawed back just because of the revenue shortfall,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
maybe in future years.
And we're lucky with that one, our centers, it's free to the public, so. None of that, there's no revenue to tax.
Nicole, I have just one question. You said that the contract services included like alarm and fire. And how is that different from the alarm and security services?
So the alarm and security services is specific to security guards, so the
Oh.
on sites,
Okay,
where that is a third party monitoring. Goes
okay,
to a call center out of Seattle.
right. Okay, so it's not
To that.
alarm and security services, it's just the people
Yeah.
on site. Okay, thank you.
Good question. Any other final thoughts? Yeah.
Can you read it?
With the increase in cost for data IT as well as the higher security costs for 2025, do we see any need to make shifts in the 2026 budget?
We did account for those shifts in the 2026 budget. There's a slightly higher increase in the costs, yes. Okay, moving on to the next one. So there's a snapshot of our utilities. And basically what that was at in each branch, we did, we say that I grouped together facilities and the B location for now, because the B location hasn't been operational, and, well, it just hasn't been open to the public, so. Most of the people that are in there right now, or that have been, is the facilities department. What is, what that's gonna look like going forward.
I know, I was just gonna ask that.
That is
What's the D?
I was just
So,
asking.
thank you.
Thanks.
So B is what we titled or what we decided on the name for the Nevada site location. So kind of the final bond project that we identified, because we had some property out there on Nevada. We had it for sale for a very long time. And nobody wanted to use it. So we got creative, we partnered with Thrive. Some low income housing apartments on that site. We now own that land and we're essentially leasing from them. Part of the bond projects is we built a geodome, which will be a public space, and also a very, very nice greenhouse to white yellow southern. So that will also be available for public space as well as educational programming, things of that nature.
Okay.
In addition to that, which is not part of our B location, so to speak, but there is going to be a community room that opens with Thrive Apartments. And so they will be paying for the utilities and everything for that spot, but we will be operating that room as a public space, and it will act like the rest of our event space throughout the entire city network, where patrons can go online, book the space, and they get access to that.
Thank you. Isn't there also a kiosk?
There is a kiosk.
Yeah.
Yes, sure, yep. We've got a bunch of those common areas. No, thank you. Appreciate it. Trying to think of everything, and I know I'm probably missing a lot to cover, but as we work throughout the year, stuff will come up and we'll keep going. So, we have a snapshot of the utilities by branch. For Central, you'll see we're quite a bit over on that. Part of it's the massive increase that Avista put on us, but also the solar panels that we have on that branch. It's really volatile, and so kind of hard to predict on what kind of wattage we'll get from it. Depends on the amount of sun. We had a lot of cloudy days that year, so kind of just working on adjusting and learning what that looks like. So.
How long have the solar panels?
So in April 2023 is when we opened that branch, and that bond project included the solar
Oh,
as
I
part of
didn't know.
that. They were not fully operational though until a year and a half.
Oh, okay, so you're still learning kind of.
Yeah. With some weirdness with the connection, there was some wiring that had to be put in for it to fully function. It was a whole dramatic event. And then here's a snapshot of our interfund charges. Things are outside of library's control as to how those are allocated and charged to us each year. So the city indirect cost that covers council, mayor, and their administration. The centralized accounting is essentially payroll processing and AP, so all of our invoice payments they send out. IT expenses and replacement is essentially just the software that we use, the city purchases, like the financial management system and the inventory management, things like that. Office performance management is essentially oversees STA. And some other metrics, but a little bit of a vague one to me. We did have a true up occur though, so I think the spending as far as the STA budget management was fairly low for 2025. So we had a true up and got purchased some money back, about $27,000. There's still true ups occurring. Some of those accounts they have not posted yet. So if there's anything that's very material that occurs from 2025 year, I will bring that forward to the board as an update in another public meeting.
Can you explain what a true up is?
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
sure what that term is.
Fair enough. So for the internal service funds, they essentially always want to be budget neutral. So by the end of the year, if they have not expended their entire budget, or if they have gone over their budget, whatever that the delta in order to make it budget neutral, so a net zero cash effect, they would take that delta amount and divide it across all of the departments that they don't charge at the same allocation rate. So you either end up getting charged more, or you get a little money back depending on how their total outcome at the end of the year looks like.
What exactly are the city indirect costs? You said it has to do with the council, mayor, and the admin, but
So it pays for the city council, it pays for the mayor and the administration. It also covers some things like HR and communications, but I did negotiate those down because we already have those.
That's a newer
It's
evolution of
Yeah.
indirect city costs.
pay for part of our salary.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as a department, we probably had the least interaction with city council. Just saying.
But thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here.
And then to close, so facilities fuel, so we have a total of 7 vehicles in our fleet. So that's just gassing up all year. And then my Spokane is essentially just our banking. So we do our deposits and get our revenue transactions from your bank through my Spokane. And then last but not least, well, but our operating capital purchases and improvements, this is just operations, not bond, we do bond next, but just a quick snapshot of what we spent for the year at $1,400,025. Books came in a little bit under budget, just slightly, because there were some things on back order in the month of December, or we would have been almost right to the penny on spending. I will make note too that originally that budget was $1,500,000. We did cancel the Hoopla streaming service. So that was part of the 2025 cost savings initiative. So it's about 140,000 in savings that we recognized there, but that is reflected in this budget as well. Any further questions with operating? So bond fund updates. So we really didn't have any additional contracts to execute because we're basically done with the projects. We really just working under the threshold of encumbrance carry forward. So contract that was incomplete by the date that we had hoped. So we carried that budget and worked forward into the 2025 year. We also are carrying forward to the 2026 year. As I talked about in our last meeting, originally that project was supposed to be over by the end of 2024, December 31st. We did have some extensions so that the substantial completion date was May 7th. The punch list items really didn't get completed until this fall, winter. So we're in the process of closing that out. We did just do at our last meeting, the notice of completion. So we did file that with the Department of L&I. They did accept it, and so we're waiting on letters at this point in time. So at the end of the 2025 year, again, we still have a contract in place that is incomplete with Alpine Construction, as well as a smaller amount with Zero DB Communications that is for a fiber install. And for full transparency, the fire came in a little bit under budget of what was originally encumbered. So we're, once we have this established budget threshold for the 2026 year, we will release the zero DD purchase order for those $1,831.88. And that will go to any additional charge for the Alpine contract closeout. There's a little bit of operations funds that go toward completing those projects because there's some unknowns as far as fiber goes. We had to do some concrete at one point with the change orders that we had. There's some overlap with the operations. So that's what will happen with that one. And then here's just a little pie chart for you just to show overall site budgets that we've had. So overall bond projects, we've got PMO, of course, Central being our largest portion, being the largest building. We also had a change order for Central that occurred a couple of years ago, or maybe it was about 3 years, for additional staff room. So that added a little bit of budget capacity there. Then just remodeling all the branches, adding some kiosks. So we have kiosks at Yoga Slaytop Valley area. We've got kiosks at the 5 Mile STA location. We've got the kiosk at Catholic Charities Family Haven, and then we've got the kiosk up at Nevada. We also, prior to the bond, we already had a kiosk established at West Central Community Center there. So that one's a different company. It's a different brand of kiosk, but works pretty well. So next page, you're going to see more budget and dollar amount of all of those projects. In the pie chart area, so you can see the key location at Nevada, the kiosk remaining budget is that full encumbered amount. So that will become the 2026 budget threshold. We'll be spending every month. And then below that just shows the branches by each category of capital expenditures. So as far as building construction down to public art, FF&E, lab equipment, all of that fun stuff. So you can just kind of see it in different versions, the same expenditures, just by different categories. And then next, it's just kind of a snapshot of public works projects by each of those sites. It's been a huge overhaul, and I just want to thank my staff, especially me, for all of her very tedious tracking. And it's Penny Brown, who's my predecessor. It's absolutely amazing. She was the auditor for working at the library, and that was a huge task. And she was very meticulous about all of the documentation. So a total of 59 public works projects. Sorry, 60. 59 that are closed now. One that's sent for closure. So 60 public works projects in that amount of time is massive. It's huge. So
Will you celebrate once you're at zero?
we celebrate each one. Actually, yes.
Yeah. But even Penny, because she retired over a year ago.
Yes.
Like, still going, Penny.
Exactly.
That's not done yet.
So, and then just kind of a summary of 2025. Kind of what we had worked on. Total expenses were $692,979. We did pay retainage for that central break room furniture and remodel that I mentioned earlier. We had budget capacity there. A&E construction professional services were paid for program owner costs, Nevada, which is B, Hilliard, Liberty Park, and the Hive, and then our 4 kiosks. We did install 5 fiber and open 5 Mile kiosk for operations. Completed the B site. That included the geodome and greenhouse, as well as the 24/7 kiosk. And there was a lot of work that went into that. So putting it in one sentence, Bill his credit the amount of time that staff has put in, and with blood, sweat, and tears sometimes of trying to keep that organized and get it going. So it was pretty impressive, but we're happy that it's behind us now. So for 2026 to complete the total bond is basically just the final payment issue to Alpine Construction. And then we just retain everything for 30 years. So there's just no fullest. All the things that you have to do back up. It will be many, 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 many bank boxes.
Yes.
Heavy. Never gonna light them on fire, hopefully.
Hence the story.
30 years, it'll be for your retirement and the close up.
Any questions on bonds? Thank you. Now, finally, made it to the last page. Thank you for your patience. Appreciate it. So for January 2026 library operations, so our cash and investment trend. So for the first month reporting, we're now able to pay 51 days of operating costs. The new operating cost per day is $41,155 for the 2026 year. That is based off the expenditure budget of $15,021,570. So the balance essentially of our available cash and investments is $3,841,429. It does include the reserve for capital, which is $1,754,775. So really with that reserve for capital, that's something where every year if we have scrap sales or any of our interest income that gets put into that account. So anytime we're going to spend those monies, it has to be approved by the board. The project has to be identified, the capital purchase has to be identified. As we're going into 2020, end of 26, 2027, our fund balance will obviously be depleting pretty significantly. So my plan, and just a heads up to everybody here, is that you will be probably spending that on capital books and materials in the 2027 year. So I'll come forward and ask for permission for that once it's a more known time frame. That's the story on that one. So as far as the expenditure trend, so January came to a total of $966,636. Personnel costs were just $561,996 of that amount. That's lower than our normal payroll because of the 2025 payroll accruals I mentioned and the year-end portion. Let's see, capital books materials. We purchased $191,422. That does include some renewals for annual software. Those include like Placer AI for example. Some of our, let's go like our public databases, a lot of those we do January 1, so we see kind of a big hit at the beginning of the year for that. 2026 insurance policies were paid for, totaling $142,892. So some of the insurance policies were purchased. That was approved in December board meeting. But this is a reminder. So we have property, museum, general liability, car insurance. We have umbrella coverage to cover basically the large amount of costs that we have, especially with the bond being 77 million, 83 million in purchases after interest. That's pretty expensive to insure as well. With all of those remodels. So that's why we have additional umbrella insurance coverage. Employment practices, workplace violence, and site pollution are all the policies that we carry. Utility costs came to a total of $25,503. And then the facilities department, same time as last year, they stocked up on a lot of their cleaning supplies, so they're good to go for most of the rest of this year, hopefully. That's how that goes. So as far as business office updates, in December, we were contacted by the Washington State Auditor's Office. They did conduct 2 separate audits that month. One was the 2024 purchasing and contracts policy, including a list of all contracts and agreements that we entered into during that year. A follow-up request was issued by them in January, where SAO chose 2 of the agreements to sample and requested all of the supporting documentation. So what they ended up choosing was the first one was our snow plowing contract services. And then the second one that they chose was the easement for construction that we had with STA at the Hyde branch during that year. So that was so they could construct a bus stop on the corner. Pretty easy and no brainer. I said, those are easy ones. There you go. Nice. The other audit that they conducted that month was the 2024 travel policy and travel transactions for that year, including all bank statements. I have not had any follow-up from that one yet. It's been a while, so typically I would have some more questions by now, but have results hopefully when they conduct all of City of Spokane. That's typically when they will write their report. Let's see. For, yep, that's a fun one. So sorry.
It's bananas.
So, there was an investment interest earnings, correction posted by City Finance. It was a result of an SAO audit finding during the third quarter of last year. They had a total of 4, audit findings. But this particular one, included some interest, basically that was given that it was cash allocated to different, city funds based on interest earnings, but what they were doing was looking at the amortization of premiums, as well as the depreciation for discounts of the investments. So they had to do a correction. SAO had found that. They had to do a correction. So there was a total of 8.4 million that affected cash in the general fund. That correction did post. So our fund balance did take a hit of 112,000. So we did, although get an additional 500,000 court operating dollars in our general fund allocation for this year. Kind of just makes up for the cut that we received in 2025. A portion of that is now lessened because of that.
It's kind of a very big error.
Full transparency.
$8.4 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's been slowly happening since 2020. And so
Mm.
it was inherited.
Got it.
So there would be a lot of transactions that having kind of templates they're using, I can see how it happened. It's not
Just like a little
obvious,
bit
not as
every,
obvious.
yeah.
Yeah. Any questions or thoughts on the financial report?
Thank you.
Okay, very nice. Okay.
Well, thank you,
Thank
Nicole.
you.
I know this is always a heavy month for your reporting, so we appreciate it. And
And I was thinking maybe next year I could save the January update and do January and February combined in March. If that's easier as far as content.
whatever's easiest for you.
Yeah.
You're the one doing all the talking.
Yeah.
Spread it
Well,
out.
next year you won't have to talk about bond either.
That's.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So, no, yeah.
Here we are.
Past like years.
Yeah. Just kidding. I take it back.
Well, thank you, Nicole.
Thanks, everyone.
Chairman's report. I think change that to chairperson's report. I don't know that I have much. I think there's some work with the finance committee. We'll be having some meetings at the beginning of March. I'm excited that we have the opportunity to have proactive conversations with council. Just as Nicole was sharing in her update, got some work to do going into next year. So appreciative of that opportunity. And then I think the other thing I'd just add is it's been really cool to see all the Lunar New Year displays at the different branches. So it's been a great way for the library to help celebrate that with the community.
It keeps growing and growing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the display at Central on the steps is
Yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah, it was a fun one. I would have a feeling those wouldn't look the same if they were there for forever and ever. Bring it out every year. Yeah, that's all I have. So pass it over to you for executive director's report.
Alrighty. I do have a written report. Some highlights include, well, first, welcome to Chris Dennison to the library board. It's their first meeting. I was able to meet with both Chris and Councilwoman Tubbs the past month to talk all about library and answer any questions about where we're headed and where we've been. And it's been great getting to know both of you and looking forward to working with you both in the future. We have completed our work, our outreach work for Vision 2030. This last step for the past month and a half has really been wordsmithing those statements that we'll talk about later on today. That final step was really to share it with staff to get a bit of a pulse check to see how it resonates with them. They are doing the majority of the work around the library, so it makes sense to get buy-in and understanding of where we're headed with staff. And largely, there was a lot of agreement as far as what we're putting out there. So that was good. As far as our DPI work, our next selection for discussion will be Tell Me How It Ends. For Black History Month, we highlighted recent activities in our area, as well as blog post on book recommendations from our collection. And then as far as our collections go, if you have not checked it out, there is a pretty awesome display up on the 3rd floor. This is a collaboration with Eastern Washington University, talking about the Cold Millions, Jess Walter book, really focusing on freedom of speech. We were a real big touch point in the early 1900s for freedom of speech. That's what the largely Cold Millions is about. So if you have an opportunity to check it out, it will be on display through the end of March. The mayor actually at Cabinet gave it kudos. They had attended the event and were really impressed with the event and just the display that we have going on there. Our first carpet cleaning at Central went really well. This is I wanted to report because you did approve this action for us to close the facility. Carpet's much cleaner. And even more importantly, we were able to conduct safety training with all staff in that facility, and our safety manager, Jordan Hilker, really did an awesome job, and we're looking to build on that to get staff feeling prepared for the situations that we deal with as a public facility. I had mentioned before the meeting started, our partnership with Peer Spokane ending for now due to lack of grant funding. This was originally a partnership that started in 2023. Better Help Together had a grant that provided about $400,000 to have 2 Peer Spokane specialists at the Central Library. That funding ended in 2025. The city stepped in as far like with some bridge funding to get us through with 1 peer specialist, but now that funding has ran out. So there is an opportunity for us to prepare to apply for the city's grant cycle, which will be in April, June of this year. So we'll see if we can resurrect that for the community. It's been a really great partnership, really effective in navigating folks for the resources that they need. So hopefully we can bring that back at some point. It really takes a lot of the pressure off of our central staff. They aren't experts in social services, and there are a lot of social service needs that happen at the central facility. So we'll see what we can, what comes up with that grant cycle.
Do they have data on the number of clients, library patrons that they served
Yep.
during that period?
Yep. We can share that. with you.
Yeah.
It's on the blog
It's
on
in
the website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
We can send you the link.
Yeah.
For sure.
I've also resumed office hours for staff. This is when I go out to each branch for an hour or so and just I reserve a meeting room and let them know that I'm here if they can come and chat, bring up any issues that they have, or just to say hello. It helps with my visibility as well as connections out on staff. I took a few months off just for holidays, and the budget situation took up a lot of time last year at the end of the year. So I'm happy that I'll be resuming that actually next week. I'll be hitting on I think 6 of the facilities. So looking forward to seeing everyone. Our star spotlight for January went to Sean Beresford. He received a customer comment, and I think that often really shows more than us just picking someone, for the recognition. Sean, as always, really offering exceptional customer service. The job of a library clerk isn't just telling folks where a book is at. Often you're dealing with technology and just navigating all the resources that we do provide. So you really got to be on when you're out there on the service desk. And we really appreciate Sean and all staff for the great service that they provide. And as you had mentioned, for City of Spokane, we do have our first study session with City Council and some of Mayor admin to start figuring out what 2027 budget is going to look like, as well as our levy ask that will need to happen in 2027 as well. I will be meeting with City Council's Finance Director with Nicole next Tuesday to go over any questions in advance that they might have, so we can have a more productive meeting. So looking
She
forward to
sent
that.
out an email to all council members today asking for questions.
Perfect.
Well, that's the perfect segue to Councilmember Tellis.
Yeah, that's basically all I have. Yes, I'm looking forward to the March 5th meeting to get going on the 2027 project. I will say we've heard a lot about the peer services. We've been getting a lot of emails about that. I went to the administration to see what can be done. We're still in conversations about all of that, but that was very clearly a very loved program, and we heard it from the community.
Yeah, and I was talking with the police chief today and he was getting comments. He's like, why am I getting comments about Pure Spokane?
We're getting them all over.
But it's an effective program.
Yeah.
And it's well appreciated by the public as well.
Well, I'm wondering if there's opportunity to also look at the model for, because a lot of those services can be billed through insurance.
Mm,
So it might be interesting to have more of a conversation with them to understand what that could look like.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. You know.
It's like you're in public health or something. Yeah, I don't have anything else other than that.
All right, well then we'll hand it over to our communications team for communications report.
Chris, my name is Alina Markar. I'm always behind the scenes making the event marketing for the adult services events that we partner with Pharma on. So I was familiar with you before you were in the board.
Nice to
So excited to have you here, and a couple of highlights from the marketing world. Library-wide, the art campaign that we've been in collaboration with 4 artists on is going so extremely well. We have seen just an outpouring of love from the community, and it shows in the bonfire store that we launched with the designs. We've earned about $1,000 for the Spokane Public Library Foundation, which is really incredible. The billboards are also just so fun to see throughout town. Someone even had commented saying that she had seen the Marmot billboard and said to her husband, "Did I just see a Marmot billboard?" And then she Googled Marmot billboard Spokane and found the artists who had done it, and then went uncommented on her post about it. So that's just like a marketer's dream to know that, it led to further conversations. So that's happening in the community. It's been so much fun. Personally, Skylar and I, a big win for us and so much fun for us in January was speaking at a local event called Creative Mornings, where a whole bunch of creative people get together over coffee and snacks, and it's a completely free event. And you are always talking about a certain theme. So the theme we spoke to is a Farsi word called kursu, and that is a faint glimmer of hope. And so we talked about how this art campaign and even just seeing a library billboard that made you like smile is that similar faint glimmer of hope. And how the library is a glimmer of hope for many people as well. And we just had an incredible time. 107 people were there for that. It was a great time. And we also had an incredible library learning week. We had about 700 more people attend events for Library Learning Week compared to last year. And a lot of that came from the Lunar New Year event, the Vietnamese Lunar New Year event that we had at Shadle Park Library, which I'm sure Jason will talk about as well. For earned media, you'll see that December and January were much lower, but those are probably more average because November was when we announced our the budget conversation. So that one's just, much higher. Email, some of our top content was of course Library Learning Week and the current library art campaign. And same with our blogs. And then if you flip the page over, you'll see the Facebook and Instagram. You know, we don't really put a ton of, worry into having a slower month or whatnot because it really just varies. We always talk about how we have absolutely no idea what's going to resonate with people on social media. And sometimes we'll post some Seahawks memes and they will just blow up. Or we got something else that had thousands and thousands of engagement. So you just never know. But one of the things that I also wanted to point out is that in January, when we started kind of pushing more of the videos with the library artists that we're doing this big campaign with, you can very clearly see from the YouTube views that that push works, and that people are watching what we're sending out. So that's really something special for us. And that's it.
Would you like to talk about the annual report too, while you're already?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's an additional item at the end if you don't mind.
Yeah.
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 I'll make it super quick. But so some of the highlights for 2025, you'll flip to that first page. Andrew talked a lot about our Vision 2030 development already. And a few of the highlights for us are really bringing on these new culture passes. So exciting to bring on the Spokane Symphony Orchestra, the Spokane Civic Theater, Spokane Velocity, and Zephyr football clubs, and create accessible experiences for our community. So people can go online and they can reserve those shows and football games online, in addition to our existing ones with Mobius and the Northwest Museum of Arts and Culture. We have launched new library hours across the board in June this last year. We also had a really big celebration for our arts education specialist, Eva Silverstone. She's really incredible and won a Mover and Shaker Award from the Library Journal, which is a massive award. It's national, and it's it's a big kudos to her on that one. We had an incredible year of programming, and you'll also see on the back, I'll kind of cover that now, but I think, we did have a slight decrease in total attendance for our programming in general. But I think a lot of that stems from not being able to host the Tacos and Tequila event that we have every year that gets, I don't know, like 8,000 people or so. So it was, equivalent to something like that, but the programming highlights, we didn't quit nonetheless. We had an incredible amount of programs that we put on. And as always, we love to support the programming teams in their endeavors, creating these events, and then we help market them and try to get as many people to come to these events as possible. Scale House Market, which is the year-round farmers market, now plays Lilac City Records, which is our local music streaming platform. And you can kind of read through all of these, but I will say that the big campaign that we did this last year, the My Library, My Story campaign, where we shared personal testimonials of people who have used the library, that went really well. And we're actually in the process of applying for a national award for that and submitting it for a national award because we just thought it was, we loved hearing the stories and the outpouring of love from the community. Flipping over to the youth element, I think Skylar and Denise did a really great job going over all of the summer reading stats from last year. And I was talking to Skylar earlier about what she would really want to highlight. And I think the event types and the amount of people that come to the events are always just so, they just wow us every single time. So whether that be the Minecraft block party with 400 plus people, the Reptile Man, people love the Reptile Man so much. It was just so precious to see all these kids holding this giant yellow snake at Central Library. And then Cedar the Cow story time also got 400 plus attendees. It's really incredible. And people are reading, people are activating their Beanstack accounts. They're participating in these challenges. And you can see they're coming in for their rewards. They're like, we're gonna do it because we had 3,425 people come in to get their reward, which is pretty incredible. Flipping to the stats page. A couple of things that I looked at compared to last year, the total gate count, which is across all of the libraries, how many people are coming into the library, that's basically how many visitors that we've had, is almost 100,000 more than last year.
How do you count that? We were just talking about.
gate counter on the doors.
Yep.
That now that counts how many people come in and out, and so we normally take the in numbers or the out, I think it's normally the in numbers, is that what you calculating on this? We're gonna lie.
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, I normally calculate the in numbers only, but anyways, so it's about 100,000 more, library wide compared to 2024, which is really incredible. And then I also want to give a shout out to Dana because she had almost 100 more one-on-one sessions in the Inland Northwest Special Collections, which is just incredible. I mean, they're being inundated there all the time with questions nonstop. So really big, a really nice increase there. And then we also saw over 4,000 more hours of meeting room usage compared to last year. Really incredible things. And flipping over to the circulation by the members, a lot of this is not a surprise to us because a lot of them were similar to last year. Kristen Hannah's The Women, Lessons in Chemistry, Fourth Wing, Court of Thorns and Roses. Those are all the same as what were on our top picks from last year. And then we also found that for our audiobooks, we have lots of Frida McFadden fans because multiple of the top books in the audio section were Frida McFadden. And you'll see our top library of things, sewing machine, ukulele metal engraver, that's a little pen on the side over there, and then the Discovery Pass and what's called a Botley coding robot as well. And then, a lot of the budget overview has been talked about time and time again in these meetings. But I do think that Amanda really wanted to make this a part of the annual report because she wants to make the budget conversation a more public conversation. And to have that transparency of, here's what our revenue is, here's where our expenses are. And I think the biggest thing to note too is just the increasing of cost through everything has really increased our expenses, and you heard all about that today. So I will not, as the non-expert, go into that. Any questions?
This is great. Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I liked it. It's very easy to read. It's very simple. Yeah.
Awesome. Amanda will love hearing that. She created it.
Awesome. Thanks, Alina.
Yeah.
Jason for the programming update.
All right, I'll go quick. This is the 50-month, 461 total programs that will be used. That includes 300 of the one-on-one sessions. And then Jim Dana did 135 of those himself, so that's pretty intense. 5,500 people coming to events this month. Our impact score, which you don't know about, it's a way that we measure how we build our programs. There's a little quiz that people take when they're designing a program. It gets them the score and it factors in attendance. So you get a final score. What's the impact of that program on the community? But it's 19.59 this month, which is higher than the 2025 the 2025 average, but pretty significantly. Some highlights, talked about the Lunar New Year. We had 1,300 people came to Shagel Park Library throughout the day for that event. Bonkers. Everybody loves getting their picture taken at the library. There's headshots every time Ryan does that. It's just standing room only back to back for 3 hours. In fact, I think we're gonna incorporate that in a more regular way. In shorter stints, like have an hour here and there where you can do it. Taking pictures for 3.5 hours straight without just kind of sense.
Smile.
KYRS posted 2 concerts this month. Some good attendance, 337 people came to those, which is good. If you look at some of the charts on the second page here, I can tell you some stuff. You can see the big on the adult impact score, the one that sticks out really high, that's the Lunar New Year, which kind of skews all the numbers. But one thing that we're trying, I'm gonna keep messing with the formatting and the board, is showing the programs that kind of go above the our standard deviation here, so stuff that's really sticking out. So as you can see, it's not always just programs that are 1,300 people show up. Yeah, if you have a program with 1,300 people, it's gonna be on there. But we have a couple programs with attendance of 18, like our Right Together program that Sharma does, but it's such a impactful program that you don't need as many people to show up to have a big impact, which is something I would say about last year's numbers being down, even though, yeah, we didn't have talks to tequila. We really been focusing on trying to do more impactful small group programs, so that's going to affect our overall number of people for sure. But that's it for now. Any questions?
Any questions for Jason?
I don't feel.
I like the value over volume idea, yeah. Okay. Cool, well, thanks, Jason. Hand over to you, Andrew, for the mission vision values update.
All right, so the long-awaited Vision 2030. As you know, we've been going through this planning process since the fall of 2024. Last year, a lot of public engagement, either online, in person, focus groups, pop-up events throughout the community. We did it all and tried to hear from as many people as we could. And what you see before you for your hopeful approval is a slightly modified, mostly evolved version of what we had approved back in 2018. Really shouldn't be any surprises because we talked about this for the past couple months, really. So you'll see as part of the packet, you'll see in 2018 what the original statements were. What we're proposing is on the other column. New mission statement, we connect you to knowledge and new possibilities. We really ran this through with staff. We gave them 4 different options to sort of do some ranked voting. And this one really rose to the top. What I like about it is it's a direct value proposition to an individual. You know, we connect you to knowledge and new possibilities, really focusing on the personal element of how people connect to the library. Proposed vision statement, new vision statement, a community where everyone learns and belongs. Not much different from the other statement from 2018. What I like about this one is that it does incorporate some of that legacy statement that the board came up with back in January of last year. Where we bring people together. So incorporating some of that. And then you'll see our values very much the same in spirit. Some wordsmithing going on there. We wanted to make them more action oriented, which is what you see there. So cultivate curiosity, nurture partnerships, promote inclusion, innovate, build trust through people, and practice resourcefulness with some descriptors after their sake of time. I won't read those out. And then evolution of our strategic directions as well. From sparking curiosity, being champions of literacy, maintaining that expansion of access for individuals as part of the be the resource direction, and then be the platform. It's all about our spaces really and what people do in them. So creating welcoming spaces, bringing neighbors together to connect, collaborate, and build community. And again, having that showcasing Spokane. We define that a little bit more with these directions. Instead of showcase Spokane, it's we showcase Spokane stories, creativity, and diverse voices. And then the third one under being responsible. This one is probably the biggest change. We really focused this in 2018 on the partnerships, but that's become so much a part of our DNA is collaborating and partnering with the community. We wanted to keep that in our values because that's the way we go about our work is with partnering people and really focused instead on being responsible stewards of public funds, public services. It's going to be a huge lift for us over the next couple of years to really get that. So focusing on what that looks like and coming through with sustainable funding, as well as how we spend it is I think a great focus for us as well. That was a real quick and dirty overview. But
Thank you for speaking to the
Yep.
partnership part of it, because that was my biggest hang up in looking at these was,
the partnership,
yeah,
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 we talked about that a lot and just figured the climate that we're in, the funding situation that we're in,
Mhm.
just, with the trust in government.
yeah.
Just in general, it just seems like a really good place for us to be,
Mhm.
and focusing on that as well.
Yeah.
So we are looking for the board to adopt this framework for us, and we can get going towards 2030.
Any other questions for Andrew?
Mari says, this looks great.
Thank you, Mari.
All right, well, can we get a motion to approve the updated mission, vision, values?
I move to approve the updated mission, vision, values, and strategic direction framework as presented.
All right,
Work team.
got a motion? Get a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Awesome. Nice work, y'all.
Yeah.
This is,
Thank you.
yeah, this feels like a good place to be moving towards. Lots of work too.
Lots of conversation, lots
Yeah.
of feedback, lots of analysis, and, I think we landed on something good.
All right, well, last but certainly not least, Dana, we'll hand it over to you for our Inland Northwest Special Collections.
Sorry, Dana, I just want to make sure people online can see this as well. That's great.
Okay, well, hi, everybody. My name is Dana Brunson. I'm the Archivist and Special Collections Librarian. I manage the Inland Northwest Special Collections, formerly known as the Northwest Room, located on the 3rd floor of the Central Library. We're often the first stop for local history research in Spokane, as we house thousands of non-circulating materials, including books, clippings, and ephemera files, historic maps, city directories, and more that kind of tell the history of Spokane as a region. And in addition to these materials, we also house a manuscript and rare book collection, which are stored in our vault in the 2nd floor of the library, which we bring up for researchers to use. There can be a perception of archives as insular and static and associated with the past rather than the future of a library, but we're really intentional in our work to demonstrate that local history has a real impact on people's lives and our communities. And it's our goal to make it as easy as possible to connect with our resources and knowledge. So what does that look like in practice? On a day-to-day basis, the majority of my time is spent meeting one-on-one with patrons to help support their research. Here's a snapshot of that data over the past 3 years, just to get a sense of kind of a profile of what these interactions look like. So 80% of our researchers are local. 64% are visiting in person to get help, and 68% of those interactions take more than 30 minutes of direct staff engagement. I think this data really demonstrates the reality of archival reference work, which is that the majority of the time it's members of our local community doing in-person work that requires a lot of sustained professional support. I will also add that as of last month, the archives at the Northwest Museum of Arts and Culture has significantly reduced their reading room hours. So we're starting to see a big influx of researchers to us to kind of help make up that gap. So I expect that to kind of increase over the next year. So data can only tell us so much. I also wanted to kind of zoom in on a day in the life, if you will, of a specific day we had in the INSC back in December. This day is kind of a great snapshot of the variety of research needs that the INSC supports. It demonstrates how we kind of serve as like a watering hole for a lot of local institutions. This day we had an engineer from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers doing research into historic uses of a section of the Spokane River. A city employee from the planning department was using our map collection to assess contaminated properties. A reporter from the Inlander was looking at neighborhood history. A reporter from Spokane Public Radio was doing a story on Jewish history in Spokane. A pastor came in to do some church history. I mean, it kind of goes on and on and on. There was just all kinds of people people were here on this one day, and they were interacting with each other and with me and the resources, and it was just kind of a great day that really demonstrated like why we're here and why we do this work. This also doesn't even capture all of the phone calls and emails that came in that day. So I just, it's a lot to juggle when there's so many people in the reading room on a particular day, but I'm really grateful that the local community not only knows that we exist, but visits abundantly to seek our support. This relationship is really symbiotic as well, because the more that we support the community's research needs, the more that they give back to us to help support our mission. I want to talk a little bit about one of the programs that we do in INSC that really demonstrates this relationship. So every month, in collaboration with our lovely writing education specialist, Sharma Shields, who's here, who works in INSC with me, we host a program that we call Illuminations, where we curate a selection of books from our collection kind of around a topic or theme. And as a steward of a rare book collection, this title partially harkens back to medieval illuminated manuscripts. The word illuminated from the Latin illuminare means lighten up. Medieval illuminated manuscripts the decorations on those helped guide people through them, especially people who couldn't read at that time. And so while our entire collection is open to all researchers, it's often very intimidating for people to come in and, request to see some of these items that are hundreds of years old just for fun. So through this program, we want to literally light up our collection and help guide the public through not only how to handle the items safely, but how to enjoy them and have fun with them. The other component of this program, Illuminations, is that we want to light up the work of our talented community members by putting them in conversation with our collection. So whenever we can, we invite a specialist to our program to give them a platform to give a brief lecture or share their work. Recently, we featured local author and naturalist Jack Nisbet. That was so fun to have him. Book artist Mel Hewitt and artist Hannah Charlton. The best part of these collaborations is that the people we invite often already have a really deep relationship with us as researchers. So they can show program attendees different ways they might also interact with our collection and gain inspiration for their work. We also want to support Spokane public schools and our local universities whenever possible. For the past 3 years, we've collaborated with Gonzaga University on an assignment that brings in the honors first year seminar class. Each semester, between 90 to 100 students come in for individual research appointments to locate 3 different items from 3 different time periods that help demonstrate the history of the location in Spokane. The students actually just started coming in again last week, so it's going to be a busy few weeks to get them all through, but it's always really fun to have those interactions. This month, I also brought a selection of our rare books to Eastern University, which you can see a picture of there, for a bookbinding class that was being hosted in their archives. So that was a fun opportunity to kind of go on a field trip and increase engagement with our collection offsite. We've also hosted a lot of elementary through high school age students for tours as well, which is fun. So to conclude, I kind of want to just highlight a few projects that the INSC has supported in the past year that have been really meaningful to work on. In collaboration with Asians for Collective Liberation, we created a permanent digital exhibit centered on the history of Asian Americans in downtown Spokane. And I have hopes that we will kind of continue to build and grow on this archive in the future. I also recently worked with WSU Health Sciences to support their research efforts as they work to build an Indigenous healing center on their campus. They're looking for kind of materials to go up on the wall to support that community as well. And a big project I've been supporting is a grant-funded effort to put up historical markers in the Perry District, and they have been coming in to do a lot of really nitty-gritty research about building history. So it's been fun kind of digging into the details with that group as well. Thank you for having me today. I know it's been a long meeting, so I appreciate you listening. I think we're so lucky to have such a special and rich archive, and I appreciate you allowing me to share a little bit about how we support the community here through our work.
And just of note for the board, their hours increased after we opened Central with a bond. And that's part of what our operational dollars increase has gone to. And I think that this is an investment that has really paid off.
Yeah.
It's something that was open, 20 hours a
It was
week.
before my time.
Yeah, it was hard to get into. You couldn't depend on it. And now folks have that access as they should
Yeah.
to their cultural and local history.
When you guys didn't just open the doors more, like you were making such a concerted effort to bring the community in.
And having Dana and Sharna, who are such passionate advocates, be in there too, I think that, you know, is really helps liven up the room and make it even more approachable and aligned with your radical welcome, you know?
I was gonna say, I haven't been, as someone who's used your services, it's a very welcoming space. You're both incredible at what you do, and it's just so nice to have those resources and, you know, where else can you touch cuneiform tablets?
I was gonna put a picture of you touching. it. Might be a little too on the nose.
Well, and I think the welcoming piece kind of just hits the nail on the head because a lot of other libraries, these types of services do not feel. I was in New York over the holidays, and to get access to any space like we have at Central is like an act of Congress to be able to access. So it's not accessible for the typical community member. And I feel like you have done a really good job of, like Danny said, bringing folks in to making it a welcoming space. So nice work and a good note for us to end on. Do we have any other comment? No one signed up? All right, well, if that's the case. We'll see everyone for our March meeting at Liberty Park on March 17th, and this meeting